What's up, divers? Welcome back. I am your host, Cosmic.
And I'm your co-host, Twist.
And today's topic is about therapy. Let's dive in. Mental health has been a big discussion all over the world in the last, I'd say, 5 years. Here on the In the Deep End podcast, we are big fans of and big believers in getting therapy, finding the help that you need to become the best version of you. There are many affordable avenues for getting the therapy and the help that you need. One of the biggest engines right now being BetterHelp, who we are not sponsored by, but we would love to hear from you. And there are a lot of stigmas and phobias around the topic of therapy, whether it be individual, marital, and what are some things that you've heard, some dispositions you've heard towards the idea of therapy?
I've heard that those who seek therapy show weakness or some sort of inability to manage their own lives. So, in fact, I think that seeking therapy is one of the most courageous things that you can do, to recognize that you do not have the ability to iron out and straighten out everything. And it's okay to go and seek help. And you're correct. It can be individual, marital. Sometimes it has to be mental health counseling.
Right.
And they do have, as Cosmic said, a lot of affordable avenues to do so. I think a lot of the time our mental state tells us that you don't need therapy. You're not a weakling. You can do it yourself, but obviously you can't. Otherwise you wouldn't be in the situation you're in.
Do you think that those stipulations are placed on you by yourself, or is it from your upbringing, or is it a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. Absolutely. Because you're telling yourself that you can do it and you're stronger than this. If you mention to your family members or friends that you are thinking about seeking therapy, they kind of look at you like, why?
True.
So it makes it difficult to take that step because you don't want them to think poorly of you.
I've heard a lot of people, they do not like the idea of therapy because they feel as though, one, some people don't believe that it works. Some people think it's just a ploy for other people to take your money. Some people are very private people and they have a hard time with the concept of divulging their deepest and darkest, truest thoughts to this person. They've never stood in front of somebody so naked before, metaphorically. And others feel, how can this therapist ever understand where it is I'm coming from and where it is in my walk of life? I hear that last part, especially from Black males who have a lot of the time grown up in poverty and unfortunate circumstances.
Yes, that's true. But at the same time, again, we've been taught that the psychologists and therapists are scammers. They only want to take your money, like you said earlier.
Right.
However, I think that's why a lot of people are not at their best. Because they let society dictate what they should or should not do. But when you are in need of help, then there's no one around to help you. So at some point, you have to take the bull by the horns and do it yourself and make the decision yourself to seek help.
I think that therapy is a great benefit, guys. I have self-medicated. I've tried to solve issues on my own. And just like the saying goes too, broken people can't fix each other. Sometimes trying to fix yourself while broken, you break more pieces that weren't broken, or you damage the pieces that were already shattered. And there's nothing wrong with going to get help. Just like you would break your arm and have to go to the doctors and get a cast and pain medication or whatever it is that you may need, the same thing goes for your brain.
And sometimes, too, it's not even getting something fixed, but making something better.
Right.
Or understanding something that you didn't understand before, or thinking about it from a different perspective. Everybody thinks about things from their own prism and through their own lens. And that's something that therapy helps you to do, because it gives you a different outlook. And they also teach you how to look at things from another perspective. Sometimes we're so engulfed in our own thoughts and our own way of being that we can't step outside of that and learn something different.
And I think that there's a fear aspect at play when you talk about having to alter. There's a fear. I think it's fear/pride when you talk about having to alter your perception of things, because some people don't like to be wrong. They don't like to admit, especially the older you are, the more you have to come to terms with the fact that maybe there has been a better path to thinking or doing things. And that's a lot, especially for someone like me who, as you guys know, if you've listened to previous podcasts, I am very prideful. And in ways, you kind of feel like if I give up this perception, if I give up this idea, I am betraying myself. Or in my case, you think that, dang, have I been fraudulent this whole time? Have I not been true to myself this whole time? But I think that the best thing for me to realize was that I am a combination of many things, and not everything is all black and white when it comes to what you are as a person and as an individual. You're not always the strong person, and just because you have weak times, that does not make you a weak person. And I think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially if you're a strong person like myself. That is a very hard pill to swallow.
You know, you mentioned fear earlier, and maybe that's what stops people from seeking help. And I would agree that it is, fear. People are afraid to see themselves being at fault for anything, or maybe not really being true to themselves. And, it's yourself that got you in the position you're in.
Right.
So, yes, maybe, yourself does need a little help and assistance, and it's okay to recognize that. And you're right, it doesn't make you weak. It just makes you, it allows you to say, hey, self, I need to change some things. And I need help in doing it.
I may not have the tools to do so myself. And if anyone listening, if you are thinking on the fence about therapy, or you've been told by your friends, maybe some coworkers, trusted individuals that, therapy might be a good thing for you, but you have some of the same concerns that we talk about here on this podcast, I hope that it gives you a change in perspective, or better perspective, and that you're brave enough to take that leap and do so. I think that when it comes to therapy, what are some of the best ways? What would be some of the best advice you could give to someone who is thinking about therapy, or they say, I've tried it and I don't think that it's worked for me? What would be some advice that you would give to those people?
Well, first, I would say if you have tried it and you feel it didn't work for you, you go and get a different therapist, because every therapist has a process and they're not all the same. Mm-hmm. Some processes work for some people while others work for another set of persons. For me, in my therapeutic experiences, I've seen 3 different people in my lifetime. The first person that I went to see, he was more of a give you the tools and hopefully you can figure it out yourself. That worked for me, but didn't work so well for my husband. Second person we went to see, he was more of a, this is the situation and this is how you need to change it. And that worked for road. And also for me, because I was able to, instead of having to do that extra homework, he just pointed it out directly. So my suggestion would be to go and try another therapist, the same way you would go and see a medical doctor and you didn't feel that they were beneficial to you or your problem, you change doctors. The same would apply.
I think the biggest thing I'll start off with that. Well, it goes hand in hand, I think. One of the biggest things I've noticed when it comes to people who say that therapy doesn't work for me, I've tried it and I didn't get anything from it. Yes, switching your therapist may be what's good for you. You need someone who you feel you're comfortable with. Comfort is the most important thing when dealing with the therapist. Now, comfortable does not always mean that you are going to be right all the time. Comfortable does not necessarily mean that that they agree with you all the time. Comfortable means that you trust this person well enough to give you constructive criticism if there's any to be given. And my second tidbit of information would be honest. The process will not work if you do not work the process. If there's a situation that you are talking to your therapist about, you have to be honest, not just on what the situation was, how you felt about the situation, and from your knowledge on how the event went, what you think the other person felt about it or what they said verbatim. How did the situation really go? You can't paint your narrative of the problem and expect the problem to be solved because your narrative is false. You're giving a hypothetical issue to be solved when in reality the real problem might be something that you're going to have to muscle up and be vulnerable and brave enough to share.
Yeah, therapy is never comfortable, in my opinion. Not when you're being open and honest.
Mm-hmm.
When you decide that you really do need help and want help, you're not going to put a facade on. You're not going to make yourself look good because you can't see yourself in any other light. When you are open and honest, comfortability goes out of the window and problems begin to be solved or on the road to being solved. So yes, you have to be open. And like Cosmic said, you have to work the process.
And some of you might be confused. You might say, well, how can I be comfortable and vulnerable and honest when that makes me uncomfortable? You have to be comfortable enough to get uncomfortable. That's how I would best understand it. To me and what the person I am, I have to be honest with myself. And I always have been. I might lie to you, but at the end of the day, when I'm looking in the mirror, I am completely honest with myself. I don't sell myself the same thing that I would sell someone else. And there's a freedom in that, but I understand that some people, you don't know yourself well enough. And hell, even I at one point thought that I knew everything there was to know about me. And through some trial and error in therapy, I realized that, it wasn't all that I thought it was. And I didn't know myself as well as I thought, maybe better than most, but not as well as I thought. And so you have to also be willing to, you have to have an open mind, be willing to accept that you may be the problem. You may be the ground zero of your issues. And sometimes it really is the other person or the environment that you're in. And some things you may not have even thought about. You may talking to the therapist, you may tell a story and they want to dive deeper in the story. And you feel like there's no point in diving in deeper into that. That's not the problem. But within that piece of information you shared, the problem may have revealed itself, or it may not be the root of the problem, but it's definitely a sprout to potentially another, or, it's a baby one that you didn't think was a problem.
I think that everybody needs to spend time with themselves and ask themselves what our problems are. Why was I so angry about such and such? Why do I feel this about this person? Because you have to be honest with yourself first before you can move forward and tell someone else what your issues are.
Yes.
I have my own personal experience, as I stated earlier, with therapy. But one of the most beneficial things I learned is that I can't always expect people to do what I think they should do. One of my primary statements was he should have, or they should have. And the therapist stated, you're shitting all over yourself again. And I was like, what does that mean?
What?
And he basically said that your expectations of people are predetermined resentments. And I sat and I thought about that, and I went home and thought about that. And I said to myself, he's exactly right. Because when I've set it up in my mind that this person should do X and then they don't, I'm mad at that person. And I could not understand it until I really sat with myself and thought about it. How can you tell someone, or how can you expect someone to do something, and when they don't do it, you have an issue with them? So that was eye-opening for me. And instead of expecting someone to do something, I learned to, I try every day still today to have a conversation with someone to let them know what my expectations are. They can tell me either that's their expectation as well, or no, this is what I think. That has been very helpful for me in my life thus far.
Who are some people? I'd agree with that. I think that, and one thing I'd actually like to touch on that you just said is that you said your therapist brought up the fact that or what did he say? He said that, what did he say?
Expectations are predetermined resentments.
Expectations are predetermined resentments. I think that is one of the greatest gems that somebody can ever get. I need to write it down myself. Goes with therapy as well. When you're going into therapy, don't have an expectation of what it's going to be like. Go into things with an open mind. And with the idea that, you know what, I'm struggling and I want to get help. That's the only way it's going to work. Beating around the bush, and for some of you, it's going to be a process. That's also something that I think people get jaded by. Some people get into therapy and within a month's time, they're like, all right, I'm out of here. I got it and I'm fixed and I feel great. And it's a process because sometimes there are things that take longer to disassemble or to really get a grasp, an understanding of. You might have gained an understanding, but you may not have gained an understanding on yourself, and not so much so how to change it, but how to grow in it or figure out how you being this person fits into the world and in your chosen environments.
You know what? You hit the nail on the head with that one, because people do want instant gratification.
Right.
They've been them their whole lives, but all of a sudden they think they can go into therapy once a week for a month,
right,
and think that, oh, okay, I'm a new man or I'm a new woman,
right?
And it just doesn't work that way. It does take time. It's kind of like weight. You gain 40 or 50 pounds,
right?
It's going to take you probably twice as long,
right,
to get it off, and that's with doing all the right things. It could take longer.
Exactly.
So getting mentally healthy takes time. You have to do your work, as Iyanla says.
Absolutely. And in a way, and not to say that, I haven't done therapy religiously as this, but I would say that it's very much like an addict, for instance. They have to constantly keep up on their their sober tip,
Sober living practices.
sober living practices, right? They have to constantly go to the AA meetings because it's not a problem that you necessarily fix. It's more of a affliction or a situation that you are learning a new way to live with.
Like a lifetime maintenance.
Right. It's a lifetime maintenance. It's a journey. Think about it. Go into it with the idea that this is a journey that I'm on. Now, if you're like me and you soak things up like a sponge, not only what the person is saying to you, but the concept behind what it is they're saying to you. For instance, from the therapy that I've had, in new situations, because my first thought and my first instinct is my ground zero self, who I was before I ever got into therapy. And after that, I have to stop and think about what I learned and what did I learn from therapy. Okay, well, you have to ask yourself these questions. You have to, what tools did you learn when you get into this state? And it becomes something that you can, depending, not many, I don't know, but it is something that you can also actively do yourself once you've learned the concept behind your problem, I'll say.
And I think, too, the outlook that I decided to take on therapy is not fixing me, but becoming a better me.
Right.
And I think that helped me to be able to swallow that therapy pill a little bit easier.
Right.
Because as a younger me, I thought you were weak if you had to go and get someone's help to, live your life. I was in that group.
Mm-hmm.
I was in that statistic. I thought that. But when me and my ex-husband were having issues, he suggested that we go to therapy. I was completely against it. He did talk me into it, and I'm so glad he did, because it taught me a lot. And one of the other major things that I learned was in therapy, when we're trying to work through different problems, to not focus on anyone else but me.
Right.
Because I am the only one that has control over how I view things, how I feel about things, and how I'm going to respond to things. If I'm busy pointing fingers, I don't have time to look at me. So I really appreciated that valuable lesson.
And that's a good point. And I'd like to build on that and say I'm a big believer in individual therapy. I think, I haven't done couples therapy, I haven't done marital therapy, but I'm a big believer in you have to get you together before you can be part of a so-called team, whether that be family therapy, I think marital therapy, couple therapy. I think it is very important to first do individual therapy, and you may not want to be honest in that atmosphere, especially if you haven't had the practice, because when it's just you, there is this person that doesn't know you, you don't know them. You get to just genuinely and truly be you. If you've never been you ever in your life, that is a moment for you to be honest about how you feel about your partner, how you feel about your family, how you feel about your coworker, how do you feel about your friend, whatever the situation is. And so I am always a big believer in individual therapy before any form of group therapy. I feel like if you're not a good player yourself, and like I said earlier, you have to know how you play a part in the team. How do you impact the group as a whole? That's just what I'm a big believer in.
And, I want to kind of expand on that too. And you're right. If you have any family trauma, childhood trauma,
right,
whatever the case may be, I also learned don't wait for it to play out.
What do you mean?
Basically, it's okay to go and do some preventive counseling, if you will. to say, okay, well, I just got engaged. I'm in this relationship. This is how I've been feeling. I just want to make sure that I am, as mentally healthy as I can possibly be. I know that I witnessed some things growing up with my own parents,
Right.
and I don't want to follow in those footsteps. And how do I not do that? And that's okay to do that. Just like how we exercise because we don't want to have health issues,
Right.
the same thing would apply.
True.
So I think that if you do think, or even if you don't think, it's okay to go in and check out and check yourself out. Because yes, you want to be a whole person before mingling with another.
Absolutely. And one thing that I would also mention, although this isn't per se individual therapy, but some people have a hard time, I feel, standing naked in front of someone. And they feel like that's not something I can do on my own. Well, there's also group therapy, such as AA is a form of it, but sometimes it takes seeing someone else have the courage to do something for someone else to say, well, if they can do that, then why can't I? And, so some people do need inspiration, but even within that group therapy, when I say group therapy, I mean it's you, a therapist, and a group of strangers. So there still is a level of people being unbiased of you as an individual. And if that's something that you feel that you need to do because you feel like maybe, and actually hearing somebody else say something and you can say, you know what, that sounds like me, or do I do that? Everybody's brain works differently, and there's so many different avenues that you can take when it comes to this thing. You just have to figure out what works for you.
I'm so glad that you brought up like a Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, because you're absolutely right. I went to a divorce therapy class, and there was probably about 12 women in the class. And there's always some that are more talkative than others. So, this one lady got up and she was talking, and I like to think of myself as a pretty talkative one and, a pretty introspective one. But you know what? She said something that I never thought about, and it applied to me. And it kind of really made me feel better, actually, listening to what she had to say.
Right.
So you know what? That's also a form of therapy. If some people feel more comfortable in a group, seek out a group. I know Facebook now has all sorts of groups that people join, and they have Zoom meetings and stuff once a week so you can do the face-to-face, and they just communicate throughout the week. If you're having an issue, there's someone you can talk to about it. That is also a form of a therapy, and less expensive, I might add. But that's good too. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And also in thinking about therapy and how it's viewed here in the United States. The COVID shutdown really shot up the individual therapy numbers.
Interesting.
Isn't it? So I guess people had a time to sit with themselves and think, hey, I need some help. I have some issues going on.
Well, it's actually something we got to see play out on social media. Some people were genuinely going crazy. I had a great time, guys. I had a great time. Look, I love hanging out with me, myself, and I. But some people, they struggled severely. And so that's interesting that people sat with themselves and said, hey, this is something that I feel like I need to do. What would you have to say to the people who have this huge value on family and their family social life, who are afraid to go to therapy because they are afraid of being ostracized or to be made seem crazy by their family, when this is such a big part of their life?
I know it's easier said than done, but at some point you just have to be for yourself, because I tell you what, if you don't go and get help, they're going to be the very ones talking about, girl,
Right, talking about you
Right.
and you tripping and falling.
Right. So no, I understand that people don't want to be looked at as crazy, but the best thing to do is to tell your family. I mean, it's not a it's not a psychiatrist. I'm not going, to the puzzle factory. I'm just going to get a better
Not the
to
puzzle
get a
factory.
better understanding. I'm going to get a better understanding of what's happening because I'm viewing things this way and it's making me feel X. So am I viewing this incorrectly? Can I be viewing it a different way? There is one exercise, excuse me, you guys. There's one exercise that our therapist used to give us. I used to come in and I'm all upset about the situation that happened last week. So I'm talking about the situation and he'd say, okay, stop right there. And he had a whole list of things. Do you think this person did this intentionally?
Right.
And it's either yes or no. Then he'd go on to the next one. And then the next one. And then once you kind of work through those steps,
That list, yeah.
you feel completely differently at the end of it. That was another valuable tool that I was able to learn because that happens all the time at work when your coworkers are getting on your nerves. Did they do that on purpose? You're almost going to lose your job because you're getting ready to go off on folks.
Right.
Your neighbor's tripping and their dog's always in your yard and always meeting you at the front door. All kinds of things that happen in your life can be applied to this lesson that I learned. That was the most valuable, one of the most, because I had many. That was one of the most valuable things I learned. It is really a lifetime benefit if you go to counseling with an open mind and you're able to absorb the things that are being taught and check your ego and check your pride at the door.
I actually had a question to that, to what you just said. You being a person who felt like going to therapy was something that could be seen as a weakness, how did you personally knock down that wall to be able to open up and be able to participate in the experience fully?
As I stated earlier, it was easier to swallow the therapy pill with the understanding that I'm not going to fix me, I'm going to improve me.
Okay, I see.
And that helped me to be open to the process. Once I was able to get in, clear my head, and hear what the people or the person had to say, I was able to receive it. Sometimes I clap back, sometimes I challenge them. But what I learned is that was an internal thing that I had going on. Why did I feel the need to challenge the person?
Right.
It is okay for a person to have their opinion, even if it differs from yours. It is absolutely okay. The best thing to do, or what I learned, is to understand where they're coming from. Is there validity in their thought?
Right.
Even though if you say yes, there's validity in that thought, doesn't make you a bad person. You're just wrong.
Right.
And it's okay to be wrong.
Right.
So that's kind of how it worked for me. And then once I started realizing the benefits and I was able to use the tools that they were teaching, then I was all in 100%.
Okay. So once you saw the progress, you were full throttle at that point.
Yeah, and I was so excited.
Right.
Because the idea that I could actually be better than I thought I already was just great. So I was really happy about it, and I was pleased and proud of myself.
Right.
For pulling this wall down, and in pulling that wall down, I was able to build myself up.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think that difficulty level was for you?
It was about a 7.
A 7. Okay.
It was about a 7 because I was very prideful.
Right.
And I felt that my mom did a great job, in her rearing of me and of my sibling. But also at the same time, people aren't perfect. And they can only teach you what they know. They don't know everything. So you take your base and you add to it.
And I think that that's such an important thing that you brought up, because some people feel like if they learn this new way of thinking or of being or anything like that, they feel like they are betraying their upbringing and their teachings. Now, in my opinion, some of you need to destroy the foundation and start pouring some concrete, because it's just all hollow in some points. You build anything on it, it might cave in somewhere. Some of you need a complete demolition and start from the very, very, very beginning. But it's a valid point that you bring up, because some people, that's hard. I think that's a big thing that makes it hard for people to really even start the journey, because what does that mean? Not only what does that say about me, but what am I saying about my family
And my upbringing.
my parents in particular,
Right.
or people I've placed this value in.
And and honestly, in thinking about that, your parents may also feel slighted.
Exactly.
Like you are saying that they did something wrong, or that
Exactly.
you're messed up, or they messed you up in some way.
Right.
But what I would do too, because my mom was completely against it. She didn't understand it. She thought that, there was something like not quite right, that I had to go and seek out therapy. But you know what? That was okay, because she's from the old school. I understand that. So what I did was, once I started to learn more about things and how to process through things, I would come home and share it with her. A lot of the time she'd be like, but in talking about it, also helped me too, because I was also I was reiterating what I had learned, and then I was able to kind of put it into whatever situation we were talking about at the time. And as you practice doing that, it eventually becomes just a natural thing.
Right. I definitely have to say, when it comes to my experience in therapy, that I did not have, I'm a person, type of person I am. If I come to somebody for help, I really need help. And at that point, as hard as it may be, I got to throw pride and ego and all of that to the side, because I'm at a critical, I understand that if I don't get this help, it's going all the way left. So for me, it was very easy to go into therapy and be open and honest. I won't say it was easy, because being a prideful person, if you saw me do it, it looked easier than it actually was. Because, there's always this like pain in your chest when you have to be, especially at first, when you have to be vulnerable and open and honest with not only who you are, but how you feel about things and what you really think about things, and how this could be perceived, or all of these different things. It's very difficult to do. However, I'm a person that when I feel like when the check engine light comes on and it's time, I gotta do what it takes to go ahead and get the situation fixed before we crash out. So,
and then, for those of you who don't know, I am Cosmic's mom.
Correct.
And talking about parents and how they feel about it, and do parents feel slighted when you have to go to therapy? For me, I don't know everything. I am also biased when it comes to my kids.
Right.
I can only give the information from their mom's perspective.
Right.
Sometimes I try to step outside of the mom box, but I think that having the ability to do that in its entirety is almost impossible.
Right.
I do the best I can with that, but I know that I don't know everything, that there are professionals out there who could be more effective than me. He's not going to want to share every single thing with me.
Right.
Although he shares a lot, and I'm grateful that
A lot.
we have that relationship.
Right.
But I'm sure that there's not, everything that he wants to tell mom. So I don't feel slighted. I didn't feel slighted. In fact, I encouraged it. But I think that it's only with the help that I received myself through a therapist.
Right. By the time therapy was ever even an option for me, because I too am a very strong individual. I can't say that I ever looked at getting therapy as weakness, but I definitely didn't feel like it was necessary. I actually learned through therapy that I've always, in a way, been my own baby therapist. So I learned that I do ask a lot of my questions that they ask, and I do a lot of these things. However, just like, and this is my biggest point I want to drive to anybody who thinks like, I'm a pretty strong person and mentally and everything like that, and I know everything there is to know about me. I didn't realize that I knew everything there was to know about me at that given time, give or take a few things. I'd say I'd had a good 90%, but I had ambition to be better. And I thought that I could be who I was in that present moment and still get to that place where that better person is. But there were things that I had to improve on, and I had to think differently about to ever get to this place. So it was like I was always getting close, hitting a wall. Always getting close, I hit a wall because I am missing, I guess, key points to who I was or who I could be if I were to pivot in thinking about things differently or understanding things differently. I'd also like to mention by the time it was time for me to go to therapy, or that was an option, Twist had already been in therapy. She'd already broken down this idea of therapy being a negative, so I did not have that. My parents and my family don't understand. My grandmother, however, Twist mother, she like Twist said not too long ago, she was not a big fan of therapy and whatnot. So yes, but yes, those are some things that I had to do and challenge myself on.
Cosmic saying about how he was his own therapist, a baby therapist, I think he said. And I think a lot of us try to do that for ourselves. But I got to tell you guys, and I'll tell you guys about this crazy story another day, but I had this mandated class that I had to go to, and we had to talk about what brought us there and our situations and stuff. And boy, I got to tell you, something about hearing yourself talk out loud
Yes.
about your situation has a whole different level of understanding.
Yes.
When I heard myself talking out loud about my situation, I heard how crazy it sounded,
Right.
how crazy I sounded for being in the situation.
Right.
That did me a world of good. That was a paradigm shift in my life, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm listening to myself say this.
Right.
And this is my life.
Right. Right.
So I had to do something at that point. I had to change it.
Right.
Because I didn't like the way it sounded. And I
Right.
didn't like the way it may have sounded to others.
Yes. I think that that's another great point, is actually hearing your thoughts, because when you're in your head, everything makes sense, because you're not only thinking about it, but you're attaching it to your emotion that you feel about the situation, and you may lose your rationale in doing that. I have a big problem with that, because once I get upset, that's it. It's like all understanding and
reconciliation,
all of that's out the window for me.
Right.
It's like, so that hearing yourself say something, and it's also, it's more than that, because sometimes you know it. But I had this experience where the therapist I was at the time, she was saying, well, and how does that situation make you feel? And I said, well, I'm angry. And she's like, well, why are you angry? Or like, yeah, but why are you angry? And I said, because I'm sad. And she was all like, well, why are you sad? And then it was almost like once I got down to the real root of the issue, I was kind of like, damn, And it forces you to think about it, because if you're like me, you get so wrapped up in how you feel about it and how you think about how you feel about it that you never you I had to learn that I wasn't as mentally what do I want to say? I'm very I'm not going to say intelligent. That's not what I mean when I say this. I learned that I'm a very emotionally intelligent person. What I had to learn was that I was so focused on the emotion aspect that I was losing, or I had lost the thought aspect, the rational aspect, the real, and that's what was important for someone like me, because it wasn't how I felt didn't really matter. It was only hindering me. Why I felt that way is what was important. And then, like Twist said not too long ago, you have to go through this list of, well, was that intentional? Did you have any control over the situation? What could you have done to have made that circumstance better? And you have to go to, and it's a whole nother, it opens up a whole new narrow pathway. And doesn't mean that you were wrong in some areas, and sometimes it does. Sometimes you are wrong, but you're entitled to your feelings and how you feel. But there's another aspect to it, and they are separate. They do work interchangeably, right? Mm-hmm. But they are their own separate systems. If you guys think about it this way, you have a digestive system, a circulatory system, a respiratory system, so on and so on. All of these systems are different systems. They deal with different things, but they all work together to accomplish one goal. And if you look at it in that aspect, yes, your feelings matter. Yes, what you think matters. And all of that, but all of those things have to come together, and they have to merge in order for you to be at your most optimal level. And I think personally that has been the best thing that I was able to get out of therapy. And like I said, I was able and am able to now, when something comes up, I still struggle. I need to go back to be real, but I have gotten tools that I didn't have before that made me a better person. And I am glad that I was able to, one, be honest, because that was my biggest thing, was that I had to be honest in everything it was that I thought and felt. And I encourage anybody to pursue it and be brave enough.
As a parent, I can say that I'm very happy and I'm very proud of Cosmic. Very proud of Cosmic that he has such an open mind. And you are absolutely right. That was an excellent point you made about the systems working together for a common goal. Excellent point. Because your mental health is a part of that as well.
Right.
So working on that, just like you'd work on anything else. It's just an excellent point. I loved it. And yes, it's funny because Cosmic said he's more of an emotional person.
Right.
And I like to say exactly the opposite. So in my teachings or my learnings rather, I should say, with therapy, is that it's okay to be emotional.
Right.
It's okay to be vulnerable.
Right.
It's okay to share your feelings. Mm-hmm. In fact, Michael was his name. That was our therapist's name, Michael Jones. He was great. Mm-hmm. He gave us a sheet and it had like maybe 35 faces on it. And it was different emotions, because some people don't even know how to identify the emotion that they're feeling. So he'd give us this sheet and he'd say, so how are you feeling today, Twist? And I'd look at the sheet and I'd be like, oh, well, this, and this. And he goes, okay, well, let's explore those.
Right.
And it sounds kind of ridiculous, but then once you get into it, you're like, at the end, you're all, and and then
Right.
it's like, okay, so now you're understanding and you're feeling, okay, so it's okay to feel all these things. It
Right.
is okay, and it's a way toward healing.
And that's so funny that you say that because, like I said in that therapy session, after I had gotten to the root of that issue, you guys, I was bawling. I was bawling. When I say bawling, I mean like ugly cry because it was just kind of like, it was like the sun came out and it was a trip. I can't explain it, but you will be all broke down once you have had a little breakthrough. It's true.
And you know what?
And I'm not a crier. As emotional as I am, I'm not a crier usually.
Right. It's true. And you know what? It's okay.
Right.
It's okay. And if we don't get anything through on this podcast, what we do want to say is therapy is there to help, and it's okay.
Yeah, I'd agree, guys. I hope that you guys gained something from this and that it improved your thoughts on therapy. I know for men in particular, it is difficult to talk about how you feel and what you think because the world doesn't necessarily care about how you feel and what you think. You're just supposed to be a man and suck it up, but drowning yourself in recreational activities and alcohol isn't going to help you. And it'll cause more damage to you. Just like someone we know, kind of deals with this problem and self-medicates and tore his little truck up one night, drinking and driving.
Yes, he did.
And so I suggest to anybody, I can only speak for the men in this case, but I would suggest it to anyone. Go and get some help. Go and be brave enough, be man enough to be honest, open, and vulnerable and fix your problem so that you can lead a better life and a life for those who you take care of.
And if you don't want to look at it as getting help, just say, I need to go in and get a tune-up.
Right. You need to go get this check engine light turned off.
Right, exactly.
It's going beep, beep, beep. And the car is rattling when you're driving. Get it fixed.
It is okay.
You have anything else you would like to give our divers today on the therapy topic?
I don't have anything else on the therapy topic, but I do want to talk about our weight loss journey. I have an update for you guys. Yay.
Yay, we are still on it.
We are still on our liquid diet, you guys. I am 35 days in, and I have lost 21.8 pounds. Yay. I'm so excited.
How's the difficulty been for you?
To be honest, you guys, it hasn't been difficult at all. I'm so surprised and I'm so curious about the science behind it. I'm not hungry. I have a craving, every now and then. It's kind of like when you stop smoking or you stop drinking, you think about it. And as soon as you think about it, it goes away. Same thing. I'm so surprised that I've been able to stay on this for so long and feel great. I feel amazing, you guys. I am just really blown away. I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Cosmic, how's your experience been?
I'd say my difficulty level on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's about a 5. And I'd say it's about a 5. I work at a restaurant, guys, right now. So I'm around food all the time. So I walk past, all of this delicious looking stuff, and it's just kind of like, oh, I want to take some of that home tonight. So it's that is difficult.
That sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. It's the worst, but to me, the goal is more important, and it's more of I have a stronger emotional pull towards where I want to be than I do to that delicious chicken Alfredo or the fajitas or
Don't
anything.
even say anything else.
I know. I'm sorry.
So how much weight have you lost?
I am down 28 pounds and I have been on it for How long have you been on it?
35 days.
I've been on it for 33 days. I am barely starting to incorporate. And guys, I haven't been exercising really. I do have my job, which I do about, I'd say maybe anywhere from 9 to 11,000 steps a day. So that can count as exercise. However, I've not been actually exercising. I've just started going to the gym again. So I definitely am going to see how incorporating some more cardio and lightweight training, because I'm not too sure how I'm gonna balance that yet. I know in diets in the past I was under eating for the amount of physical exertion I was putting in, and it just made the whole experience terrible. So it's a learning process. It is something that I want to continue. I think definitely for the rest of the year, if not the rest of my life, because I think that it is important to be healthy. I know what it is to be extremely obese, and it's depressing for me. I want to lead a healthy life, so I'm looking great. I've been able to fit back into a lot of my clothes, which I'm happy about, because I'm not always a super obese person, but guys, I got out of hand these last, I'd say, 8 months. So getting it back together has been great, and I'm looking forward to the future.
And you're looking good. You're looking good.
Appreciate it. You as well. You as well. And that is all we have for you guys today, guys. If you guys have anything to share with us, you can always contact us at generationalcrossroads722@gmail.com with any comments on today's podcast, any previous podcast, and any topics that you guys have for us that you may want to hear and talk about, and share your experiences. Have you gone to therapy? Are you afraid to go to therapy? Did hearing the conversation help you at all? You can also follow us on TikTok at cosmic_twist722, and you can also follow us on Instagram at inthedeepend7. And that is all we have for you guys today. And remember to keep diving deep and challenging how you feel, you think, and what you see. And that is all we have for you guys today. Gone.